Hi, welcome back to my channel. This is Shady Atia, professor at Liège University in Belgium, and today's presentation is about manuscript formatting. Well, today's presentation is a part of a playlist on scientific publishing, and it is going to help you to prepare your document and to invest sufficiently and plan for preparations for your manuscript to submit it for a journal. Well, the objective of today's presentation is to equip you with tools to format and prepare documents effectively, and to learn about how to format references, tables, figures, abbreviations, how to number your pages and line your pages of your manuscript, and how to prepare the essential submission declarations, because there is a series of declarations that requires to be associated with your submission. I'm going to talk about why we need to take care and invest and have sufficient time for manuscript formatting and why it matters, the formatting of text, the formatting of tables and figures, supplementary material, submission declarations, how to prepare my cover letters, what are the common mistakes researchers conduct when they submit an article, and some takeaway messages. So let's start with the first point, which is the manuscript formatting and why it matters. Well, this is a very important question because, first of all, proper formatting enhances the readability and increases the acceptance chances of your research. So you need to make sure that others will understand your document. So as much as you invest in the formatting, the more your document will be clear and straightforward. Many submissions also are rejected due to incorrect formatting. So we are losing time if you are not taking care of this aspect, and the editor or reviewers will just reject your paper, and then you will have to resubmit, and this could take cycles of times exceeding weeks. Also, the average manuscript takes 14 hours to format in general. This is also a very important point. Many researchers underestimate the time it requires to format a document. 14 hours means that you will work at least 2 or 3 days just to format the document. I'm not talking here about the content itself. I'm talking that the content is ready, you have the figures ready, you have the tables ready, you have the text written, but you need now to format the text. So it takes a lot of time. 14 hours are a lot, including the initial preparation and the adjustment for resubmission. If you ask anybody today if they are submitting a journal paper, they will tell you that just the submission process itself takes from 2 to 3 hours. So it is a tedious task, and it's important to plan it ahead and take care of time and plan ahead for manuscript formatting. On average, researchers spend 52 hours annually formatting manuscripts, just to check the font size, the style, the structure, the headings, the subheadings, and so on, the numbering of pages, embedding the figures in the text. So it's so important, it takes a lot of time, and you need to be ready for that and to plan it ahead when you start a submission process and prepare for a submission. Now let's go technical and start with one of the first points related to manuscript preparation, which is formatting text. Formatting text is simply the using of the fonts. First of all, you need to make sure that your manuscript is following the IMRED structure, and I advise you to watch the previous video on writing a journal paper. And once you have the right structure, you need to make sure that you are using standard font. In this case, I advise to use Times New Roman or Arial size 12 normally for the text of a manuscript. Apply the consistent headings and the subheadings for clarity. Ensure the proper spacing. Make sure that you have a single or double spacing depending on the guidelines of authors for the journal. Justify the text as required and avoid excessive indentation. If you are going to do indentation, which is like just pulling the text after the first paragraph, pulling the text inside after the paragraph, starting paragraph 2, 3, and 4, just don't do it excessively. And a tip in general, maintain the uniformity across the sections. The most important that the whole manuscript, from the abstract till the conclusion and the acknowledgement, it is well uniform, and you are using the same style, the same spacing, the same font, and so on. This is an example here for the IMRED hierarchy. If you are asking about it, IMRED hierarchy, you can find here the highlights of your paper after the title for sure, the abstract, the abbreviations, keywords, and then you have 1 introduction, 2 state of the art, 3 methodology, 4 results, 5 discussion, 6 conclusion, then you have acknowledgement and references. This should be the structure of any manuscript, and you need to embed this structure right away in your paper. When we talk about the organization of the text, you can see here that this is an example of the indentation that I was talking about, that you indent the paragraphs. Paragraphs are indented starting from the second paragraph in a section. So whatever text you have a section title, let's say introduction, then you have first paragraph, no indentation. Paragraph 2 under introduction, it has an indentation. Once there is a subtitle or a heading, you don't indent. So always the paragraph that follow a heading or a subheading is not indented. All others are indented. So it's very important to take this into consideration. Also, you can introduce bullets. You can see here bullets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And as you can see in this manuscript, it is almost double spaced. And on the left side, there is the number of lines of the document. So the organization of your text and your manuscript is crucial, and it's important to make sure that you bring consistency in this process. Now, also use consistent abbreviation. Define the abbreviations at first and mention them at the beginning of your text. Provide a list of abbreviation and make sure that you maintain the consistency throughout the manuscript. If you use an abbreviation for a certain terminology, make sure that this abbreviation is across the whole document. And this is an example of nomenclature or abbreviation with all the terms, and it's going alphabetically and they are listed, and always you put them at the beginning. You can even include the symbols that you are using in equations in this abbreviation. This is an example for a publication with the abbreviation, so you can see the text, and then the manuscript is formatted so that there is a full rectangle that circulate and group the abbreviations. Now, it's important to have a consistent use of abbreviations, so add automatic page numbers also. After that, here, like you can see in the text, we need to make sure to have continuous formatting, so make sure that you have page numbers, and you have also line numbers, so enable line numbers in your word processor. Check if continuous or page specific numbering is preferred. Sometimes some author guidelines prefer to have specific or non-continuous continuous line numbering, but I advise to use continuous line numbering, and to not forget to have a page numbering too. So this is very important. And then now you can talk about accuracy and consistency. You need to make sure that your references are well and in line with the style required by the journal. Follow the journal required styles. Most of the time it is APA or MLA. Use the tools like EndNote, Mendeley, for example, for automation, and ensure consistency in general in your citation format. Make sure that your citation style is distinguishing journals from conferences, from books, from websites, and so on, and thesis and dissertations. And you can see the 2 videos I have prepared about references management. I have part 1 and part 2. In general, as a tip, double check against the journal's guidelines, and from there make sure that all references are consistent and the citation style is appropriately addressed and it is consistent across the document. Let's have an example here. For example, this is a complete entry for a references list, and as you can see, everything that is in red, what people forget to add in their references. For example, in the beginning, this is a standard, international standard. We have the organization, the SEN, we have the year, we have the title, we have the authors forgot to add the city and the country where the standard is published. So here it is Copenhagen, Denmark, for example. We have here in the next one a PhD dissertation, but the researcher forgot to mention what is the nature of the document, which is PhD dissertation, where is the institution, university, what is the city, and what is the country. And sometimes you can add a short link to the PhD. Same applies here for a report with missing information. Here this applies for a journal publication without a DOI, and here you need to add the DOI. So I advise you to watch the 2 videos I have mentioned earlier, references management part 1 and 2, to make sure that when you are formatting your references, they are completely coherent and they are complete as entries. Now let's move to another point, technical point of the formatting of manuscripts, which is formatting tables and figures. How can I do that? How can I insert them in my document? So first of all, use appropriate equations editors like MS Word or LaTeX. Number the equation sequentially with the text, within the text. So every equation must have a number. And when you are mentioning the equation in the text, you need to mention the number of your equation. Align the equations properly and ensure they are legible, and provide clear explanation for the variables and symbols of the equation. So these are some basics for the equations. Here, for example, another important part is the tables. Now, when it comes to table, they need to be clear and concise. So you need to number the tables and use the clear descriptive titles and avoid redundancy with the text. So make sure that your information is mentioned only one time, either in the table or in the text. Maybe in the text you just explain it, but in the table you find the facts. It depends, it's up to you to find the choice. But you can see this is a figure table, well, actually a table that is including figures. So it is still remaining as a table because the main dominant structure of it is a table. I have called it and I had a caption above the table. I have a title of the caption and I have mentioned or cited this caption in the text. You can see here table 3 and then here is table 3. So the table appears right away in the paragraph after it has been mentioned, and the table has a caption and the caption is on top of the table. Moving now to figures, make sure that your figures, they have high resolution. They are in JPEG or TIFF or EPS format, minimum 300 dpi. Some journals require 600 dpi. Use accepted formats. Add the descriptive captions below the figures. So here when we talk about figures, we put the captions under. So here this is figure 6. And again, I have a bulk of text, the paragraph. I started to mention the figure, and right away when I say see figure 6, I added my figure, and the figure that I added, it has at the bottom the caption line. So don't forget, caption line for tables is on top, caption line in figures is under, and always we mention the figure or the table in the body of the text, and after right away we make them appear by inserting them in the manuscript. This is an example for a publication, and you can see here that when I'm going to submit, I'm tracking all the figures, and I'm also going to submit the figures individually as files. This is part of the formatting. Many researchers do not know that most journals require, and editors, they require that, or publishers, they require that you have the figures not only embedded in the manuscript, but they are also available as files, and they have the same numbering saved as JPEG files, so that you upload the whole package, not only the Word file, but you upload the Word file associated with the JPEG files for your figures, for your table. So this is very important. And actually you can see here, this is a complete submission folder. You can see the figures, cover letter, detailed response, the figure captions, highlights, the manuscript. So this is important to take into account. And as you can see, I have here a list of my figures. I listed them. I have the captions of my figures, and I have all my figures as files available. So it's very important to make sure that you are able to trace these captions and have the figures associated with them. This is an example more visual on a submission folder. Like I told you, you can see the cover letters. You can find all the figures submitted. I have also the original. I keep them for myself in case there is need for modification. And then I can have, after the figure captions in a separate file, the highlights in a separate file, the manuscript, the response letters, let's say, the tables captions, also I have them, the tables and their captions, I have them in a separate file, the title page, the suggested referees. This is all a submission package that requires to be prepared, and therefore I say manuscript formatting involves many files, and therefore we takes time. Now let's move on from, after discussing the equations and the text and the figures, let's move on with supplementary materials. What could be supplementary materials I need to prepare for my submission in addition to what we mentioned? Well, we need to have here data sets like additional figures or data availability statements, or ethical compliance statements or appendices. So here we need to have well formatted and clear linking to the manuscript, and they appear normally at the end of the manuscript. You can see here on the left side, supplementary data. Here you can find it accessed through a link, for example. You can make it like a data set, or you can simply provide it included in your at the end of your manuscript. Acknowledgements needs to be also part addressed, and you need to write and invest in the acknowledgement. The acknowledgement is not like a last minute thing. Acknowledgement need to ensure that those who helped you are recognized, advisors, colleagues that are not co-authoring the work with you. Any financial support, you must mention these bodies and mention the number of funding if you have. Proofreaders who helped with proofreading the work, you must mention them directly or indirectly, anonymously or not. And any lab equipment and any workers who helped you with using this equipment or this material, you need to mention them to make sure that your acknowledgement is serious and it is recognizing people's contribution to the work, and it's not only you, it's always a team. Now let's move to the fifth part of today's lecture, which is about submission declarations. What are the submission declarations? In recent years, we researchers have been bombarded with submission declarations that they need to submit in association with their manuscript. One of the very famous documents, first of all, you need to have a list of authors. This will include the names, affiliations, and the email addresses of all the authors. And you need to ensure that these corresponding authors, their details are correct, their email address is the most recent, and if they have an ORCID number, this ORCID number must be included. So this is part of the documents that need to be associated with submission. You need also to prepare the author declarations, so ensure that all the authors review and approve the manuscript, collect the electronic or physical signatures of the co-authors, and use the journal provided templates if available. If not, you can come up with your own template. This is an example of an author declaration template. You can see here that we are writing a letter to the editor mentioning the title of our paper. We are mentioning all the legal concern with confirmation that this is an original manuscript, that this is no conflict of interest manuscript. We consider all the data protection and ethical concerns. And then when you start the signature, it's not only the main author or the corresponding author. You can find a list of all participating authors listed in the author declarations. And this is the author declaration that will require you to send to all authors an email with this PDF and ask them to paste their signatures, and then you collect this document, make a PDF out of it, and submit it with your manuscript. Now let's move to a second important document, which is the credit author statement. The credit author statement is important, and here you need to have a credit taxonomy to define each author's role. You have to refer to the journal requirements for author contributions. So here you have the credit author statement, which is classically found in many journals, and then you can have different aspects like conceptualization, supervision, methodology, draft preparation, writing, original validation, visualization, draft preparation, reviewing and editing. And you have to list all the contribution, all the authors' names, and then for every author you mention what was their role or what kind of the type of contribution they did, and mention it and list it. So there is no problem to overlap or to have doubling of certain aspects. Let's say several people worked on the validation or on the review. It's completely possible, but you need to prepare this document too and write it properly. The third type of documents that need to be also prepared is the competing interest statement. This is a simple statement that simply declares that there's no potential financial or personal conflict, and that this scientific work is done without being biased. And you need to also mention that your work was transparent to build the trust. So here you need to have no declared conflict of interest forms, for example, and these are the forms also with a very specific text. For example, here, declaration of interest. The authors declare that they have no known competing financial interest or personal relationships that could have appeared to influence the work reported in this study, especially when you have research funded by the industry or private sector and they are trying to influence the results. So it's very important to prepare these simple declaration and have it in a file. Some journals, they have fixed declaration, you just click them as part of the process, but others, they require that you upload a document and sign it. The fourth document, which is also important here for the submission, is the ethical compliance declaration. And here, this depends on your research. If you are doing a research involving, let's say, humans, animals, nature, or whatever, you need to have a consent form, and this consistent way of consent form require that you include the ethical board approval details for human and animal studies. You need to ensure compliance with the ethical guidelines, and there's a video about ethical approval. I advise you to watch it. And from there, you need to have this report from your institution that says that they approved your work. Some cases, some journals require that. Now we move to the fifth type of document that needs to be prepared, which is the list of reviewer. Here we look at suggesting reviewers, and you need to have including the expert in your field. My advice is to watch a video I have on how to select the reviewers, but simply try to avoid conflict of interest, avoid using close collaborator, people you published with, people you worked with, people from your country, people from your same institution. Try to get really expert in the field related to your field, provide their full name, their affiliation, their contact, and this is an example of a list of suggested reviewers. You always need to have it, and I advise you to have a database of reviewers so that always you are able to pull them out very fast, and that you have already a huge pool depending on the situation, and what's most important, also to document the list of reviewers. Now this is done with the supplementary documents that need to be added. Now we move almost to the end with the cover letter. Now you need to prepare, as part of your submission, a cover letter. We have a full video about how to prepare a cover letter and how to include and address the information where you are talking to persuade the editor and try to craft it to make him accept your manuscript. Because don't forget, desk reject today, mostly 85% of submissions are desk rejected. So you need to write a very good cover letter to make sure that the editor at least will give you the chance that the paper gets reviewed. So make sure that you have your manuscript title addressing the novelty and the importance of your study. If there's any ethical compliance requirement or statements, provide your contact details and tailor your letter to the journal scope and to the specificity of the editor's research in this area, so that the cover letter has a chance of acceptance. And if you need to know more, watch the video about cover letter preparation. This is an example. It's one page. It shouldn't exceed one page, and it should kind of give an idea about your research in general. So write it to the editor, and don't forget to highlight the innovation. Now, what are the common mistakes we can find when preparing manuscripts in general that most early career researchers conduct? First of all, there are some pitfalls that need to be avoided. For example, incorrect formatting of references. This is very common, or figures. People messing up with the figures, the captions, not mentioning or citing the caption or the figure in the text. Missing declarations, I mentioned 5 or 6 declarations, including the ethical compliance statement that you miss on them. You need to be always preparing them and uploading them. Or failure in general to follow the journal guidelines. So these are the common pitfalls. It's important to read well the author guidelines for a journal and to understand them to make sure that you are meeting their expectation. Now we are ending the presentation with some takeaway messages before leaving this presentation. Well, I advise that for manuscript formatting, it takes time. So the journal submission is lengthy and arduous process. You need to be patient, you need to be prepared, having the time, having the mental strength, planning ahead that it will require me a lot of time to format my manuscript regardless of the content and the technicalities of producing the content. You have to ask yourself, is your article formatted right or not? Is the title catchy or not? You need, after finishing all that, to revise your manuscript and check, does my title correspond to the content? Does my abstract correspond to the content? Did I tick all the boxes or not? Always review the submission guidelines thoroughly so that you understand the journal. It's not easy to move a submission from a journal to another journal. It will take you at least 3-4 days to understand what is this other journal's guidelines and what their expectations and how to prepare all these documents and transfer them to the new journal requirement, make them compliant. And for sure, you need to prepare necessary declarations and documents ahead, and this will not be a last minute. You need to involve the co-authors. You cannot fake their signatures. You need to contact them, get their authorization, share with them the manuscript, let them share with you the signature, and so on. So many of these steps require planning and communication, so you need to plan ahead. And for sure, download any template or follow any checklist that you can find on a journal. Some journals, they require a lot of documentation like that and preparation, and some journals, they have it embedded in the process, so they just have some boxes requiring you to fill in them up, upload some files. It depends, but you need to be always prepared and having a folder, complete folder with all these documents every time you do a submission, and by that you will increase the chances for an acceptance, make this process more smooth and fast, and can move forward to the next step. So by that, this is the end of today's presentation. The presentation was about formatting manuscript as part of a playlist on scientific publishing. I hope you take this into consideration, invest sufficient time for it, and take it into your planning schemes so that you are well prepared, not surprised, not overwhelmed with all these requirements, and better ready to produce more high quality research. This is the end of today's presentation. The title was Manuscript Formatting. Good luck with your submission. Good luck with your publications.